Hello again. This is the last lecture for the class, Fitting 1, Termination, and it's a short one, so let's get to it. Oops. Okay, terminating from the start. When you start therapy with a client, you really want to be terminating from the start, meaning that you are trying to set up therapy in a way that the client is prepared for the fact that this is not going to last forever, and that it's designed to allow them to be able to move on and use the skills that they've been taught on their own without therapy. So you discuss at the onset of therapy that the goal is to be able to terminate, to help them meet their goals, and that it's a normal part of the process, okay? There are legal and ethical reasons for terminating, and we'll go over each of those here. So first, if the client stops paying their fees, you can terminate. Do remember what was discussed in the fees and payment lecture regarding how to go about doing that. If the client is not benefiting from treatment, that would also be an appropriate reason to terminate, but there is also a process for this. So you would want to seek out consultation, discuss it with your supervisor, discuss it with the client, maybe take another look at the treatment goals, see if those can be adjusted. Basically, you want to see, is there anything that can be modified to help meet the client's needs a little bit better, or to help make the relationship work before you terminate. But if you've tried those things, you've discussed it, and it's just determined that it would be best to try a different therapist, then that would be okay, and it is okay to terminate. If you as the therapist become physically or emotionally unable to continue, then it's okay to terminate. So for example, if you get really hurt and you no longer are going to provide therapy, obviously you're going to terminate. Or if this client is triggering things for you and it just wouldn't be appropriate for you to continue working with them, you can refer them out and terminate, okay? Ethical conflicts and conflicts of interest, which we went over when we did the boundaries PowerPoint. So if you realize that there's a conflict of interest or a dual relationship that could be problematic, it would be okay to terminate. Remember in this one and in the one before, well, in the two before, if you terminate, you also give them referrals, right? So that they're not abandoned. And then finally, the one that we all hope for is the client has met their treatment goals, so there's no need to continue therapy. So in that case, it's absolutely appropriate to terminate. Now, there are times when it would be inappropriate to terminate, okay? So you would never terminate a client in a crisis state. So if they're suicidal, for example, you want to work with them through that and stabilize them before you terminate. You would also never terminate so that you can pursue a relationship with the client. Remember that there are rules about having romantic relationships with previous clients. So if you're feeling attracted to a client then, and that's impairing your therapeutic judgment or the relationship, then of course you're going to terminate, right? But that shouldn't be the ultimate goal, is let me end therapy with you so we can start dating. That's not okay. On the flip side, you wouldn't just keep a client who has, for example, met their treatment goals just because you like the fee that they're paying you. So let's say this client happens to be your client who pays you $300 a session, and even though they've met their goals and there's nothing really for them to keep doing in therapy, you keep them because you like your $300 an hour rate. That would be unethical and is not okay. Okay. All right. Finally, when you are terminating and you're having those termination sessions, documentation is very important. So first, why are you terminating? Is it because the client met their goals or some other reason? You would document that in the record. How many termination sessions did you have? You want to aim for at least 3, where you kind of talk about relapse prevention and closure and all of that good stuff. You want to indicate that the client appears aware that treatment is ending, and that the therapist is no longer responsible for the client's care, mental health care. I worked with a client once and her mother didn't quite understand the termination itself. And so she continued to call me when issues would arise with her daughter at school. And I had to re-explain this whole thing, that this isn't my client anymore and I can provide you with referrals and yada, yada. So it's important to make sure that the client understands this. After this termination session, we don't see each other anymore. What the client's response to termination was. Were they happy? Were they nervous? Were they relieved? Were they angry? What happened? And then which referrals did you provide them with, right? At least 3 are recommended. So they could be referrals for anything, like a support group that they're going to attend now that they're no longer in therapy, other therapists that they may be reaching out to if you had to terminate before the goals were met, for example, things like that. Okay, and that's it. So that is what you need to know about termination. Let me know if you've got questions. Thanks for listening.